And remember, no one who has ever lived has vanished. Their soul has merely transitioned into another form. This forgotten document, attributed to Edgar Cayce, the American seer, was discovered after more than 80 years. He is called the Sleeping Prophet, but in these lines he appears awakened. Before us is a revelation, a letter or an interview. It doesn't matter. What matters is that this is a voice speaking through time, a voice that wants to be heard. I am not afraid of death. I have seen it, more than once. It is not an enemy. It is a transition. There are no gates. There is only movement, and this movement is eternal. No one dies. Not you. Not me. Not those you have lost. These words were spoken by Cayce during one of his deepest trances, when his consciousness, as he said, disconnected from the body and entered realms beyond time and space. In that state, which the ancients called the in-between world, he saw souls. He heard them, and he recorded what was not meant for the public. They asked me, "Where are the dead?" And I replied, "They are here, not nearby, but within, in our thoughts, in our dreams, in our guilt and love. Every time you remember, they connect. Every time you are silent, they hear." Edgar Cayce claimed that the human soul does not disappear and does not dissolve. It continues its journey, in different forms, sometimes in a new body, sometimes in a state of rest, sometimes as a guide for those still on earth. Not all of the dead leave. Some stay to help, some because they are not released. In this text, he writes about the space that opens after the last breath. There is no time there, he says, but there is understanding. There are no bodies, but there is light. This light does not blind. It fills. It knows you. It does not judge. It remembers. Cayce uses strange words: structure of light, bridge of thought, vibrations of attachment. He says that the afterlife is not an end, not a beginning, but a continuation of understanding. There we see who we were, what we did, what we left unfinished. He writes, "After death, you do not lose yourself. On the contrary, you find yourself. You remove the mask. You see that you are not a name, not a profession, not a mistake. You are energy. You are the love you managed to give, and the pain you did not heal." Some souls, I said, remain between worlds longer. They do not suffer, but neither do they rest. They observe. They wait. Sometimes they return, not to live, but to remind. These words were spoken softly, barely audible, as if Cayce were speaking from afar. His voice, as witnesses described, would change during a trance. It became as though it wasn't his. Some even said, "It's not Edgar speaking with us. It's someone speaking through him." He wrote, "Death is not a door. It is a mirror. It shows you not what was, but who you have become. There, you see not actions, but their traces. Not words, but the feelings they evoked. Your life is a vibration, and it does not disappear." According to Cayce, the soul after death enters a vibrational field where it gains clarity. And this clarity is not joy or suffering, but understanding. You do not go to heaven or hell. You enter yourself, the true self, and you begin to feel everything that others felt near you. That is judgment, but not God's, yours. He claimed that we ourselves decide whether to return or to remain. No one forces us. No one punishes. The soul chooses the path, out of love or out of a desire to complete. Many, he said, want to return not out of attachment to earth, but out of incompleteness. You feel not everything was said, not everything was understood, not everything was forgiven. He described levels of the afterlife as realms of thought. There are no objects, everything is a state. You do not walk. You are, you do not speak. You feel. Your form is your vibration. The purer it is, the closer to the light. He often repeated, "Light is God, but God is not a being. It is memory. It is love. It is the source from which you came, and to which you will return, not as a body, but as a note, as a feeling, as a flash that once again becomes part of the great." When asked whether the afterlife exists as a place, he replied, "No, there is a state. There is a silence in which you hear everything. There is a light in which you see everyone, and there is a truth from which you can no longer hide." Cayce claimed that during his trances, he saw not only the souls of the dead, but also of the unborn. Some come into this world by calling, some by karma, some to heal others, and some to teach forgiveness, even through pain. He said that the soul always knows why it came, and after death it remembers too. We forget on earth, but afterward, everything returns, everything falls into place. There are no accidental meetings, no meaningless suffering. There is only experience, only the path. I saw those who left suddenly, those who didn't have time to realize they had died. They wandered, searched, not for people, but for themselves. They felt everything, their fears, regrets, love, pain, but they couldn't separate one from the other. This is the very first level, the twilight one. Cayce called this level the grey field. There was no light there, but there was no darkness either. Only shadows of memory, tangled knots of life. Souls there did not suffer, but neither did they live. They repeated as if stuck in an unfinished thought. And only when the thought of forgiveness came to them, the path upward began. He wrote, "The path is not a staircase, it is awareness. The deeper you understand who you are, the more love you are able to hold, the closer you are to returning to the source. And also, every pain caused to another echoes in you, not as punishment, but as a reminder." Edgar Cayce believed that everything in the universe is connected, not as a metaphor but literally. Every word, every movement of the soul creates a wave. It doesn't disappear. It continues to live, in others, in the world, in you. After death, you see where your wave reached. He described something he called the Council of Souls. It is not a court, not an assembly. It is a reflection of your life through the perception of others. There, you will live your life not from the position of I, but from the perspective of those you touched, and then for the first time you truly understand who you were. Cayce warned, "To fear death is to fear yourself, because after death you remain, without masks, without roles, only you, as you are." And he added, "It's better to start meeting yourself now while alive, then after death there will be no surprises." He claimed that the afterlife is not separate from ours. It is here. Right now, we simply do not see, but they do. Those who left are nearby. Not always, but when you think of them, you open the door, you call, and they hear. Sometimes he described souls who return in dreams, not as ghosts, but as guide images. If you saw the deceased in a dream and they were silent, it's a sign. They came not to speak, but to be, simply to be, so you would remember or let go. He also believed that the passage between worlds is not one way. The living can also touch the beyond, through meditation, prayer, silence, pain, even music. Sometimes a person hears a soul's whisper in their heart and thinks, "This is me," but it is they. He repeated, "Death is not the end, not a turn. It is the continuation of the line, just beyond the boundary seen by the soul, not the eye." "When you cry for those who have passed," I said, "they feel it, not as pain, but as a call. And if your love for them is stronger than your fear, they can respond. Through a sensation, through the wind, through a quiet voice inside. Not everyone can hear it, but anyone can." I saw how souls connect with the living, not by crossing boundaries, but by touching their vibrations. The purest touches happen in moments of forgiveness, in moments of remembrance, in prayers, not in words, but in the state of the heart. Love does not end. It changes form, but it does not die. Once, in a trance, I saw an old woman remembering her deceased husband. She sat in silence, holding his photo in her hands. At that moment his soul stood nearby, not as a man, but as light, soft and deep. He didn't speak. He simply was. She smiled. He disappeared, but he remained within her. Such encounters are not rare, But people call them memories or fantasies. I say this is the soul's reality. Where logic ends, truth begins. I was often asked, how can I tell a vision from imagination? How do I know if it was a sign or just a dream? I answered, if you woke up with a sense of peace, it's a sign. If it felt warmer, quieter inside, it's a sign. The soul always speaks through calm. Fear is not its language. We know the least about the afterlife, because we only listen to the body, and the body knows how to live but not how to die. The soul is the opposite. It knows how to return, how to pass through the light, how to recognize the source, because it has already been there. I often said, we do not die. We remember. We remember who we were, who we will become, why we came. It is not painful. It is like returning home after a long journey where you were tired, had forgotten your name, but suddenly hear your mother's voice and remember everything. And if you were kind, you will feel warmth. If you did harm, you will feel it not from others but from yourself, not as punishment, but as realization. But even then, love will be given to you. Even then, you will not be alone. Because God is not judgment. God is memory without condemnation. I know it is hard to understand. We grew up in fear of death. We were told to fear is to be alive. But I say, to understand is to be free. Free from fear. Free from illusion. Free from hatred. Once I asked in a trance, what awaits the soul after all its reincarnations? The answer was not a voice but a sensation of infinite light, not blinding but embracing, and there was no I, there was we, merging, peace, music, without sound, and I understood. That is home. In the final years of my life I was asked more and more often, you've seen so much, but what do you feel yourself? Are you afraid to leave? I smiled and answered, no, I am not afraid, because I have already been there. Death is not disappearance, it is return. It is not darkness, it is light, just a different kind. It does not blind, it reveals. There you do not lose yourself, you shed the excess. Everything that is not love disappears. Everything that was fear dissolves. Only you remain, the real you. I saw souls embracing each other without bodies. I saw those we called enemies meet after death and realize they were teachers to one another. I saw a mother who had lost her child find peace when she understood. He is alive. Not here, but alive. I heard music that cannot be recorded. It was a vibration, reminiscent of the warmth of morning sunlight and the silence before dawn. And it said, everything is well. Everything is right. Everything is going home. One day I asked, and what if a person dies in anger, in pain, in despair? What then? The answer was, they are not met because of that. They are met with understanding, because no one knows what path they walked, for in the heavens there is no scorn, only memory and compassion. After that, I stopped fearing not only death, I stopped fearing life. I understood. Everything is connected. Everything is temporary. Everything is possible. I understood that every one of our days is part of eternity. Every word, a mark, every touch, a trace, and that we are already immortal, not will become, but already are. We have forgotten this. But that has not changed the truth. You who are reading this now, you have already been, and you will be. You are not a beginning nor an end. You are a wave, and you will return to the ocean. Do not be afraid. Just live. Just love. Just remember that behind every pain there is a lesson, and behind every forgiveness, light. If you have lost someone, know that you are not alone. They are not near physically, but they are closer than you think, in every breath, in every dream, in every sincere tear. Just close your eyes and say to them, I remember I love. That is enough, they will hear, and when your day comes you will not fall into darkness. You will simply step beyond the veil, and there in the light you will remember everything, you will hear everything, you will forgive everyone, and you will be forgiven, and then it will become quiet, and you will understand none of it was in vain, because life is a journey home. If this text resonated with your soul, leave a comment. Perhaps someone will read your words and feel that they are not alone. Your thoughts matter. They are light too, and if you feel it, click like. It will help the video reach those who are searching right now, those who need a bit of warmth.